No. Guys, residential bonds, the overhaul, it's something that has never been changed for such a long time. We're going to talk about the birds and the bees, the A, B's and C's of residential bonds, particularly in New South Wales, with expert property manager Cleo Whitty. Stay tuned.
I'm the ringleader, so listen up.
Cleo Whitty, how are you?
Good morning on this chilly Thursday morning. It's cold today. Jack
It's not
Frosty's
that
out.
cold.
Oh, look, I don't know. It feels it today a little bit, but that's good. It's all right.
14 degrees, 14 degrees.
Yes,
Um,
the winter stuff's coming out. Bonds, rental
Cleo,
bonds.
yeah, you're a veteran in property management, and bonds is a big thing to people out there. So, I guess for people that haven't worked it out, a residential bond, when you take a property, you need to have an extra 4 weeks on the table for your landlord. Um, and there
Sorry.
goes the phone. And with with your landlord, basically that is when you move out of the property. There's a little bit of an arm wrestle over the bond, so we're going to talk about today the future of the bond, how it's used, the amount of bonds that are out there. There's some big numbers we got for you on bonds today. Tell us more, Cleo.
Yeah, so the Rental Bond Board is a government agency that holds the bonds. So you go online and you transfer the tenant's 4 weeks bond to the Rental Bond Board. It gives you a unique number and then it just stays there forever and a day until the tenant moves out. It is a lot of money when you consider today and the cost of living coming up with 4 weeks bond. You know, that typically looks around the $3,000 mark for an average rent of 4 weeks. And then that money just goes away into the ether and you never see it again until you vacate. When a
I
tenant
wish
does,
I
sorry?
wish there'd be like a guaranteed scheme for the government or something, and then once you've done something naughty, they won't do it again. But it's such a lot of money just to be sitting there doing
Nothing.
nothing. It doesn't get any in. Like, I know they say it gets interest, but that's crap. It doesn't really get any interest for the tenant or for the landlord. It just sits there.
Yeah, I had a tenant who was over 20 years and the interest they got was like 28 cents for the bond for 20 years. So on that return, you know, you'd rather it in the bank than at the bond board. So,
Can I
yeah,
can I give you some quick information?
please do.
970,000 rental bonds, $2 billion of bonds in New South Wales.
$2 billion. Oh my God.
$1 billion. The
$1 billion.
average bond is around 2,150 per property in New South Wales. New South Wales has 8.5 million people. Between $6 and $7 billion are sitting there in rental bonds at any one time. Think about that, the billions of dollars of household cash that could be earned on bond money. That's a truckload.
It is, especially in our housing market with all that's going on at the moment. That's a lot of untapped money that could help. I do have some tenants that have asked to have a portion of their bond paid back to them for rent relief. And, you know, that's an unusual one because it is meant to stay there for repairs and damages. It's not there for rent. But at the end of a tenancy, if you have that bond money there and you owe 2 weeks, a lot of the time a tenant will go, nah, just take it from the bond, in which case you can attribute that to rent
It's the
arrears.
That's the classic property manager or landlord tenant arm wrestle when they go to move out, isn't it? They try to use the rent to pay the bond, and it's like, you can't do that. That's there for what?
That's there for security that the property will be left in the same or similar manner that it was handed over to. So it's for repairs essentially. Anytime a tenant vacates and there's a dispute on the bond, either party can put a freeze on it by claiming that bond, in which case you then have to fight it out at NCAT for whatever it is you're asking. It's always an amount of money that you're seeking. So whether it be rent arrears or repairs and damages, either way, you will get an order for an amount of money. Now, whether that money comes from the bond or whether it comes from the tenant's own pocket is determined at NCAT. So when you think about it, is it really necessary that it's there at the bond board, you know? Because a tenant will essentially still have to pay it. If you can show that, you know, the tenant has damaged the property or that there's rent owed, you know, it usually exceeds the bond a lot of the time in these cases. They have to then pay it back anyway. So, yeah.
Bond rage?
There is bond rage. There was that old sentiment of those cowboy landlords that just automatically thought that bond is theirs. Look, I'll use it to help touch up my paint or to place my blinds. You're like, no, you can't do that. It's only if the tenant has damaged the property, in which case fair wear and tear has always been in place, even since I first started in real estate. The interpretation of fair wear and tear has become more loose in favor of the tenants. Like a chip in a bench top is now considered fair wear and tear, whereas in my early days, if you chip that bench top, that's not fair wear and tear. That's damage.
And that's all coming out of that bond.
And that's coming out of that bond.
Or not coming out of that bond. But with so if it so tenants obviously there's highly sensitivity because the tenants obviously want to use. How do tenants come up with double the money? Because they've often got to move into the next property and come up with another bond before they've got out of their bond. Like that must be that's. Do you know what I mean? I think is a constant juggle that we see. How do our tenants do that?
You can do a transfer of bond. It was passed in legislation. You can't refuse a transfer of bond, but that leaves the property open to obviously transferring that bond. It has to be after the tenant vacates in order to do so, and you want it early, and it leaves the other landlord exposed if there is maintenance issues. I don't like to do transfers of bond. Usually when a tenant has committed to vacating, they are aware and prepare for that 4-week bond, knowing that they're going to get 4 weeks back because they've left the property immaculate and looked after it. So in that regard, I don't usually, I don't experience tenants not having the money for the bond. You don't have to pay it until the date or the day before you take occupation. So as long as it shows that it's cleared on their end, they can get the keys the next day. Most tenants secure a property 2-3 weeks before the move-in date. So you do have that buffer of time to come up with that money.
Because it's like it's a lot because if you got like what we just said, the average in New South Wales bond's $2,500. If you got $2,500 on the way out, $2,500, that's $5,000 of your money. Now, what I think is going to be interesting is the future of the bond and the way it's handled. It doesn't seem like it's actually had much love or overhaul in the last couple of years. I love the Airbnb model. There's no bond. They're still taking the same value property. There's no bond, and the paperwork is like, that I think with our legislation, our bond and all that, it's going to be interesting to see where that future of bonds goes. It could be done, there could be a system where government actually steps in. This is like how we're going to spot, and for people that are trying to get into, if they really want to do something, rather than slamming the landlords all the time and making it harder for landlords to supply properties to tenants, they should look at that system and say, how can we make it easier with residential bonds? How can we make the transfer easier? How can we make the liquid cash availability easier? Can we, much like the 5% deposit for first home buyers, can we actually spot some sort of guarantee in way of bond for people that are out there? They don't have to pass over the cash, but if they can give some sort of guarantee for the tenant to the landlord for that amount of money, I just think, I wonder what the amount of claims are on bonds in their entirety. 1 out of 10. What do you?
Yeah, look, it's probably a lot more now. So, especially, the landlords having been hit with so many costs, they're not trying to recoup money from the bond, but they're sure as, want to make sure that property is up to scratch and they're not going to have to put any money in their pocket on behalf of the tenancy. Um, yeah, the claims that I probably do on average per month, I might only do 2 claims per month out of
Really?
the properties. I do like to plan ahead. A pre-vacate's always important. Routine inspections. You can ensure that your tenant has their bond intact and given back to them at the end of the tenancy, as long as their rent's paid on time. If the cleaning's done by a professional cleaner, that they handle things like gardens and stuff well before they move out, there's no reason they shouldn't get their bond back. There's really no reason. The bond is always tied up for silly little things like carpet cleaning or showers, grouts, ovens, all the things that could have been done and dealt with well before it gets to that, mediation part or the cash grab or whatever you want to call it. But
Yeah.
yeah, look, it is a sensitive topic. It's a lot of money. And yeah, I agree. If the government does do something to change, the way bonds are held, maybe even a 5-star rating for tenants, like when you driver's license, when you never get any fines and you become a gold driver, then, why not be a Gold Star tenant? I've never had any claims against my bond. I've been renting for 5 years. Why should I pay a bond?
Yeah. And then the government says if you're a 5-star and we've done 3 cycles of bonds and you've never had anything taken out of it, then you don't have to pay a bond, and we'll guarantee landlords out there for that. That's cool.
Yeah. Well,
Verified.
it's
Verified.
yeah, gold stamp tenant. And we do have a lot of those. I have tenants, that have been with us for so long, and I never ever worry about the bond. Yeah, the only changes I remember of the bond is it's always been you can't take more than 4 weeks. You used to be able to increase it a bit for a pet. You can't do that anymore. That's been a long time now. But sometimes when you had a pet, you'd say, oh, I want 6 weeks now, or I want 8 weeks now. And they stopped that. But that's really all the reforms that we've had. Not much.
Interesting.
Time for an
Thank you.
uphaul.
Thank you very much. I think that's a good call out, Guy. The government's got to look at these bloody bonds. Have a great day. Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
wide and vast knowledge in property management.
See you. Thanks, guys. I'm going
Take
inside where
care.
it's warmer.
Go.
Bye.
Bye.